Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what has got to be one of the most fascinating and frankly, terrifying documents ever hidden by the US government.
It's an incredible question, right? Why hide a book? We're looking at Dr. Chan Thomas's once classified 1966 manuscript, The Adam and Eve Story. Now, this is not just some casual sci-fi novel. It's a highly detailed warning of cyclical disasters that supposedly wipe out human civilization on a regular basis, literally forcing us to start completely over in the Stone Age.
Part 1. The CIA's Classified Disaster.
So Dr. Thomas was a brilliant guy, a former McDonnell Douglas engineer, which begs the question, why did the CIA feel the need to hide his work? For years, conspiracy theorists have been claiming that the 57 pages released by the CIA were just a tiny sanitized fraction of this massive 284-page book that the government is still keeping under lock and key. But honestly, the truth is way simpler. Those 57 pages, that was the entire original manuscript. If you look at the table of contents, it proves it completely. The CIA document is the whole shebang.
So what exactly is in those 57 pages? Well, I want to read you this incredibly dramatic quote straight from the text, just to give you a sense of the visceral, terrifying, Hollywood-level scale of the disaster Dr. Thomas predicted. He wrote, "A mighty Pacific rears back and piles up into a mountain of seawater more than 2 miles high, burying Los Angeles and San Francisco as if they were but grains of sand." I mean, wow. He wasn't talking about some slow, gradual decline here. He was predicting absolute, sudden, overnight annihilation.
Part 2. The pole shift mechanism. Okay, let's look at the exact, step-by-step physical mechanism Thomas outlined for how this would actually happen. First, he claimed the shallow molten layer just beneath the Earth's crust suddenly becomes disorganized and acts as a free liquid. Second, this liquid essentially acts like a giant slip-and-slide lubricant, allowing the solid land masses above to slide around freely. Third, the immense, uneven weight of the ice caps yanks the Earth's shell 90 degrees completely off its axis in a fraction of a single day. And finally, here is the real kicker. The atmosphere and the oceans, they don't shift with the shell. They just keep right on spinning west to east at over 1,000 miles per hour.
To really wrap your head around the sheer violence of that concept, imagine you're sitting in a car going 1,000 miles per hour, and it suddenly slams on the brakes. The land abruptly stops moving, sure, but those 1,000-mile-per-hour winds and oceans, they keep going at supersonic speeds. It would basically act like a massive global food processor, just shredding skyscrapers, leveling forests, and wiping out every major city on Earth in a matter of hours.
But the destruction doesn't even stop with the wind and the water, because the land stops moving relative to the sun. One side of the Earth gets incredibly, blisteringly hot, while the other side plunges into an instant deep freeze. Thomas describes the sudden 180-degree temperature drop that flash freezes entire continents in under 4 hours. He actually uses this rapid freeze idea to explain the real-world archaeological discoveries of woolly mammoths. You know, the ones that have been found completely flash-frozen with fresh buttercups still chewing in their mouths?
Part 3. Fingerprints of the Flood.
So Thomas looked all around the globe for historical evidence to back this up. He noted that over 40 diverse cultures worldwide, from Abrahamic religions to the Mayans, all the way to ancient Hawaiians, they all share a great flood myth. And to Thomas, 40 distinct myths is not just a coincidence. It's recorded history of a cyclical event. He believed the last major flood happened just 6,500 years ago. Before that, he points to a massive flood 11,500 years ago during the Younger Dryas period. Going back even further, he tracks another one 18,500 years ago when the Bering Land Bridge submerged, another 29,000 years ago at the tail end of the Wisconsin glacial period, and a previous cataclysm 43,800 years ago. Basically, he firmly believed that we are simply the latest reboot of human civilization.
And what about the civilizations that got wiped out during those reboots? Well, for Atlantis, which is alleged to have been located in northwest Africa, proponents point to the rich arch structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, and massive 50-foot water ripples carved into the landscape as their proposed evidence. Now for Mu, over in the Pacific Ocean, they look at incredible archaeological anomalies like the Yonaguni Monument in Japan, the ancient irrigation systems of Nanmado, and even the giant statues of Easter Island. They argue that these are the physical remnants of advanced societies utterly destroyed by past pole shifts.
Part 4. Fact-checking Dr. Thomas.
Okay, here's where we really need to take a step back and separate the myth from the reality.
Thomas's completely unproven claims of a physical crustal shift, the Earth's shell slipping around on a liquid layer and continents physically relocating in a single day, that is widely regarded by experts as pseudoscience. He offered absolutely no real explanation for how the planet's magnetism and electricity would get disrupted enough to actually cause this. However, contrasting that, the phenomenon of the Earth's magnetic pole shifting, that is completely real and 100% scientifically validated.
And that brings us right back to our original question. Why on earth did the CIA classify this book? Well, it turns out it was highly likely classified for UFOs, not for its doomsday predictions. Back in 1966, Dr. Thomas was a pretty eccentric engineer working on highly sensitive anti-gravity and UFO projects, not to mention missile guidance systems for McDonnell Douglas. So the book, along with a random memo and a People magazine clipping, was probably just scooped up by a caseworker who was simply keeping a close eye on an eccentric engineer with high-level security clearance. Nothing more sinister than that.
Part 5. The real magnetic threat. Now, while the Earth isn't going to physically tip over anytime soon, the rapid acceleration of our magnetic pole drift is a verified, absolute reality. Check this out. In the early 1990s, the magnetic North Pole was drifting at about 9 meters per year. Today, it is racing at almost 40 meters per year. It's moving so unbelievably fast that our global GPS systems, which used to only need updates every 5 years, now have to be heavily patched every 6 months just to remain accurate.
So what actually happens when the magnetic pole eventually flips? Because it does do that, on average, every 300,000 years. And by the way, that's a schedule we are currently about 500,000 years overdue for. During the transition, the Earth's magnetic field weakens dramatically and basically gets all tangled up. Now, without taking any sides on modern climate debates, the actual verified consequences of this are incredibly severe. Our satellites become highly vulnerable to immediate destruction from solar winds. A sudden lack of radiation protection would cause a dramatic increase in global cancer rates and create highly unpredictable climate patterns. But perhaps most importantly, we face a severe vulnerability to solar storms, which could easily lead to a complete, devastating collapse of our power grids.
Which brings us to the end of this explainer, and I want to leave you with this highly provocative, completely scientifically grounded question. If a massive solar storm hits our weakened magnetic field today, knocking out electricity for weeks or even months, how long would our modern society actually survive without a functioning power grid? The Adam and Eve story might be full of 1960s pseudoscience, but the sheer fragility of our modern world, that is very, very real. Thanks for exploring this with me today, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.